You ever have one of those huge, brilliant ideas, but then you just get stuck, totally overwhelmed by how to actually make it happen? Well, today we're diving into the one skill that closes that gap, the art and science of project management. It's literally the discipline of turning a dream into reality. So let me ask you a question. What could a crazy, complex billion-dollar mission to Mars possibly have in common with, say, building your own dream home? I know, it sounds like a stretch, but believe it or not, the answer is pretty much everything. Because at their heart, they're both projects. And that's really the key. A project, by its very definition, has two main characteristics. Number one, it's temporary. It has a clear start and a definite finish line. And number two, it's unique. You're making something that has never, ever been done in exactly the same way before. So whether it's a one-of-a-kind space rover or your one-of-a-kind home, these rules apply.
Okay, so before a single hammer is swung or one line of code gets written, every single great project starts with a great plan. This is what we call the blueprint phase, where you figure out exactly what you're building and, just as important, how you're going to build it.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, and it's a distinction a lot of people miss. You've got product scope. That's the what. It's the fun stuff, right? The features of your house. 3 bedrooms, modern look, a pool. But then you've got project scope, and that's the how. That's all the work required to deliver the what. It's finding the land, designing the thing, the actual construction, the landscaping, all of it. You absolutely have to define both to have any chance of success. So how do you make this all official? You do it with something called a project charter. Honestly, the best way to think of this is like the project's birth certificate or its official building permit. It's the one document that formally says, yes, this project exists. And it gives the project manager the authority to start using company resources. And don't just think of this as more paperwork. This document has real power. It connects your project, building that house, to the bigger picture, the strategic goal, like creating a new family home. It makes it official, it shows you have buy-in from the top, and this is critical, it's what gives the project manager the green light to spend money and assign people to the work. Okay, a project as big as building a house can feel huge, so you have to break it down. And we do that using a tool called a Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS. You take the whole project, the house, and you chop it up into major pieces, like the foundation. Then you break that down even more into what we call work packages, small, manageable tasks like pouring the concrete. The absolute key here is something called the 100% rule, which just means your WBS has to include all the work to be done and nothing else. All right, so you've got your blueprint. But just because you have a plan doesn't mean there's only one way to build. You have to pick the right strategy for the job, one that adapts your plan to what's happening in the real world. And this slide lays out the two main approaches perfectly. On one side, you've got predictive, also called waterfall. This is all about planning everything, and I mean everything up front. Think about that Mars rover. You can't get to Mars and then decide to change the wheel design. Change is the enemy. But on the other side, you have adaptive or agile. This is change-driven. For our house, this would be like building one room, showing it to the family, getting their feedback, and then using that to make the next room even better. Here, change is actually welcomed. So which do you choose? Well, you go predictive when failure would be catastrophic, and you go adaptive when failing to learn as you go would be even worse. Of course, it's never that simple, is it? No project, whether it's a rover or a house, exists in a nice, clean little bubble. There are always these forces pushing and pulling on you, things you can't control but that absolutely affect your work. And these forces have a name: Enterprise Environmental Factors, or EEFs. They're basically the environment you have to operate in. As you can see, they can be internal, things inside your company like its culture, or the specific software you're forced to use. Or they can be external, things out in the world, like the economy, government regulations, or even local zoning laws telling you how high you can build your fence. You don't control them, but you better believe you have to plan for them. So, with a blueprint in hand and a strategy in mind, you need a leader, someone to run the show. This is the master builder, the conductor of the orchestra, the person who brings it all together, the project manager. The official definition says it all, really. They are the person assigned to lead the team to achieve the objectives. They are the single point of contact, the one person responsible for taking all these separate moving parts and making them work together to get the job done. So what makes a great project manager?
Well, it all starts with technical skills. This is the science part of the job, knowing how to build a schedule, manage a budget, identify risks. It's about having the right tools in your toolbox and knowing exactly how to use them.
But having the best tools in the world doesn't mean anything if you can't get people to follow you. So the second core competency is leadership. This is the art of project management. It's your ability to guide, to motivate, and to direct a team, to paint a vision and get people excited to help you build it, especially when things get tough. And finally, the third piece of the puzzle is business and strategic management. A truly great project manager gets the big picture. They make sure that the project, your amazing dream house, doesn't just get built on time and on budget, but that it also actually aligns with the organization's larger goals and delivers real, tangible value. And when you put it all together, this is what you get. The best master builders aren't just great planners. They're collaborative. They act with integrity. They never stop learning. They're absolute masters at juggling competing goals, like cost versus quality versus time, and they know how to navigate the complicated company politics that are just part of any big effort. All right, let's talk about the final and maybe the most important piece of this puzzle. Because no matter how perfect your blueprint is, I can guarantee you one thing: things will change. It is absolutely inevitable. And how you manage that change is what will make or break your project. Think about our dream house again. Imagine the framing is up, the walls are taking shape, and suddenly you walk in and realize, you know what? I want to move this wall to make the living room bigger. So what do? Do you just walk over to the crew and tell them to start knocking it down? Because if you do that, you're basically asking for chaos. And this right here is the number one enemy of every project. It's called scope creep. It's what happens when new features or new work just keep getting added on without anyone stopping to adjust the schedule or the budget or the resources. That one little change to move a wall can create a massive ripple effect that ends up sinking the entire project. So how do you fight this monster? Well, the answer isn't to just say no to every single change. The answer is to create a system for managing change. And that system is usually run by a group called the Change Control Board, or CCB. They're the gatekeepers. And this is how that system works. It's actually really simple. Instead of just mentioning an idea, you submit a formal written change request. Then the team evaluates the full impact. What will moving this wall really do to our timeline, our budget, and our people? The Change Control Board reviews that analysis and they make an official decision: approve, reject, or maybe put it on hold. And if and only if it's approved, then you go back and update the official blueprint. It's a process that brings order to the chaos. So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Effective project management, it's not some kind of dark art or magic. It is the disciplined application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques, everything we've just talked about, to meet the project's requirements. It's how you get things done. So think about it. Every big dream, every ambition, every goal you have, you can think of it as a project. It's temporary, and it's unique. So the real question is, for your next big idea, are you ready to stop just dreaming about it and start building the blueprint